All right, welcome. Today we're going to dive into a writing skill that can seriously level up your words, making them way more powerful. We're talking about mastering active versus passive voice.
You ever get that feeling? You've written something, but the sentences just feel a little flat, like they're not quite hitting the mark or connecting with your reader the way you want them to?
Well, you'll be surprised to hear the secret is often in a simple but super powerful concept called voice. And hey, by the end of this, you're going to know exactly how to control it to make all your writing stronger.
So first up, let's get into the what. We're going to break down the fundamental difference between these two voices. It's simpler than you think.
Okay, let's start with active voice. Now this is your bread and butter, the one you'll probably want to use most of the time. In an active sentence, the subject is the star of the show. It's the one doing the action. It just feels direct, clear, and full of energy.
Take this, for example. The soldiers built a fire. Super straightforward. Who did the building? The soldiers. The subject, soldiers, is performing the action, built. See? Simple, right?
Now, let's flip that on its head. In the passive voice, the subject of the sentence isn't the doer at all. Nope. It's just sitting there, receiving the action. It's being acted upon.
So if we take our last sentence and make it passive, it becomes, a fire was built by the soldiers. Did you catch that shift? The subject is now the fire. But of course, the fire isn't doing anything. It's having something done to it.
Okay, so let's look at these side by side so you can really see it. Active, the soldiers built a fire. Passive, a fire was built by the soldiers. The active version feels direct, right? It's action-oriented, focused on the soldiers. But the passive version, it's a little more indirect, kind of puts the spotlight on the fire. That one little change has a huge impact on the whole vibe of the sentence.
So that brings us to the why. Why do so many writers prefer the active voice? Why all the hype?
Well, the biggest reason is just pure impact. Active voice injects your sentences with energy. It makes your points feel more forceful, more direct. I mean, when the subject is the one doing the action, your writing just feels more alive and confident.
And here's another thing. Active voice is almost always less wordy. Just check out these two sentences. The active one gets right to the point in 13 words. The passive version, it takes 15 words to say the exact same thing. Now, 2 words might not seem like a lot, but trust me, over a whole document, those extra words can really start to weigh your writing down.
You know, this statue, it captures a moment of really decisive action. And that is exactly what active voice does for your writing. The sentence, Paul Revere warned the Patriots, is just as dynamic as this image. It puts the hero of the story front and center, pushing that story forward.
But hold on, this isn't a blanket rule. The passive voice isn't bad or wrong. It's more like a specialized tool. So now we need to cover the when, those strategic moments where passive voice is actually the better choice.
It really comes down to 2 main situations. First, you'd use it when you don't know who did the action, or maybe it's just not important. And second, you'd use it when you deliberately want to take the emphasis off the actor and put it on the action itself.
Here's a perfect example of that first case. The American Navy was organized. By who? Well, a lot of people probably. We don't really know, and it would take way too long to explain. The important part is that the Navy was organized. So using the passive voice here works perfectly.
And for that second case, think about this one. An error was made. Ah, a classic. Here, the focus is entirely on the error itself, not on pointing a finger at who messed up. It's a strategic, sometimes diplomatic choice to de-emphasize the actor.
All right, let's get practical. Let's talk about the how. Now that you know the what, the why, and the when, let's figure out how to actually switch from passive to active voice whenever you want.
It's actually a pretty simple 3-step process. First thing you do is find the real actor in the passive sentence. A lot of times they're hiding at the end in a by phrase. Second, you just move that actor to the front of the line and make them the new subject. And third, you just rewrite the verb from a passive form, like was built, to a punchy active one like built.
Okay, let's try a quick practice round. We'll use an example from the history of the Sioux people, who were led by incredible figures like Sitting Bull.
So here's our passive sentence. Horses were introduced to the Sioux by the Spanish in the 1500s. Okay, take a quick second. Can you spot the real actor here?
Yep, you got it. The actor is the Spanish. So we just move them to the front, we change were introduced to just introduced, and boom, we get our new, more direct, active sentence. The Spanish introduced horses to the Sioux in the 1500s. See how much cleaner and more direct that feels?
And that brings us to our final, most important section, the takeaway.
This is all about taking everything we've just talked about and actually putting it to work for you.
So, let's just quickly recap the big ideas. Number 1, active voice is your best friend for direct, energetic, and short and sweet writing. Number 2, passive voice is a super useful tool for when the actor is a mystery or you just don't want to emphasize them. And number 3, and this is the most important part, you now have the power to choose the right voice for your message on purpose.
So I'm going to leave you with a little challenge. How are you going to use voice to make your next piece of writing more powerful? Next time you're writing an email or a report, just take a look and see if a simple switch can make a huge difference. Thanks for joining me and happy writing.